I wanted that college experience and I really wanted to focus on my studies, but also have a good time. I mean, come on. This was the first time where I am on my own.
Is personal branding overhyped or essential to anybody's business?
It's essential. You will get lost in the sauce if you don't have a personal brand. A lot of times you see agents wanting to mimic the top person in their market, and you need to find where your strengths are. Don't try to be someone else. It was a moment where I said, I'm set on focusing on the agents. I've built these relationships with these agents. I know their personal lives. Like we're actually friends at this point. Yeah, and you're seeing a lot of clients also like wanting that social media presence, like this closet that was built to look like a Chanel boutique. And we're gonna knock it out of the park. And it was that moment when I just saw like the heavy press coming in. And I think it's, at the end of the day, whatever business you get into, you have to be passionate about it. I mean, it's,
My name is Nick Malinosky. Welcome back to another podcast of Exclusive Mindset. Today, we are very excited. We have a very special guest, Ashley Holland with Holland PR. Amazing woman, amazing business. We're going to find out how she got into the business, how she became so successful, and what it takes to succeed within this crazy world of PR. So, Ashley, welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Nick.
Absolutely. We're very excited. So Ashley and I also work together. I don't know. We've worked together actually, dating back a bunch of years now, probably 5-6 years.
I actually did your press release when you originally joined Douglas Elliman from the agency that I was working at, Harrison & Triffman, which represented Douglas Elliman.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
Long time.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. That's a while then. So
yeah.
Cool. So we've worked together now. You've done an amazing job for us. You knew we were doing this podcast. We're sort of giving back to people. We're trying to sort of educate people in your business. Certainly give advice to, young people that were in your shoes that are trying to get after it. So let's get into it. Very excited. Let's just start real quick on where you're from and where you went to college and sort of just real quick on the beginning of this whole thing.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Miami Beach. Real estate kind of was in my blood since I was younger. My parents, were buying and selling rental buildings across Miami Beach. So I had an early introduction into the real estate world back then. And then I had gone off to University of Alabama to study public relations. And it was to my surprise that PR was, I think University of Alabama was a top school, if not number one for public relations. So it ended up working out for me. So
just not to cut you off here, but so did you know you wanted to get into public relations sort of, I guess, coming out of high school? Like how would you pick Alabama for PR? Yeah. To me, that seems crazy.
Yeah. So I wanted that college experience and I really wanted to focus on my studies, but also have a good time. I mean, come on. We're young, going out into, the real world and going off to a different city that is not your typical huge city like Miami Beach. So I chose University of Alabama. At first, I started in a pre-med degree. And I quickly found out that, studying for 24 hours straight and still not passing the test was not going to be, my career path. And I looked into public relations. And I said, maybe this might be the avenue for me. I did not know that I was going to get into real estate until later on in my first job at an agency.
Wow. Okay. So how important was your college experience getting into the business? So for instance, like to other younger people, how important do you think the college aspect was it in your career path?
Well, I think in general, as a young person in a different city and navigating, classes while also trying to have a social life, it starts prepping you for what's to come in the real world, right? So it was study during the week and get your social activities in, go to the football games. And at the time they were national champions. So we definitely had a lot of fun, but it was a lot of juggling and making sure that I did do well in school. And I found that PR was just such an interesting avenue. And I definitely excelled when it came to studying, the industry. So it definitely paid off in the long run.
And then do you think you sort of transformed to real estate based on your family's background maybe, or?
No. So right out of college, I got a job as an intern at a very nationally recognized agency called Harrison Schriftman, which was co-founded by Laura Schriftman, who I still to this day consider a mentor of mine. And Douglas Elliman was a client of theirs, and they put me on the account. And at the time I was representing Douglas Elliman, pretty big, fashion brands. I think Bal Harbour Shops as well. I was launching the One Hotel South Beach, which was their first property that they launched. So I was like in a little bit of hospitality, fashion, but I found such a passion in real estate. There's always a new story to be told. And I definitely excelled in the real estate side of it, whether it was, doing press releases on top agents coming over like yourself, or working on, a $25 million listing at that time was like the highest listing in, South Florida, the highest priced listing. So, and then you'd go into like the smaller ones, but I found that each property and each agent, has a story to tell. And it really helped build not only the agent's brand, but also the brokerage's brand. So that's where I found a passion for real estate early on at that agency.
All right, Ashley, here we go. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions really quick. Let's go. Can you give me one myth about real estate PR?
That every house is going to get into any sort of coverage. That's not reality.
Perfect. What defines a successful real estate brand?
Not trying to be someone else. A lot of times you see agents wanting to mimic, the top person in their market, and you need to find where your strengths are and just build on that. Don't try to be someone else. You have to really focus on building your brand as a unique person. You're going to get lost in the sauce if you're trying to be someone else.
What is one thing you would tell agents today to stop doing from a PR perspective?
Be careful on email. Be careful on email, especially when you're in copy with a reporter. If you're dealing with your publicist and you're working on a story, always check who's copied on that email. We've seen agents fly off the handle and a reporter's looped in. So you definitely need to be careful when it comes to writing anything.
What is the best PR move you've ever seen in real estate?
Okay, there's two. There's 1960 South Ocean, which was, if you look at the video, that was amazing. And the coverage, the attention, I don't know, how many views did we have on TikTok and Instagram? It was insane. And then dating back earlier in my career at Douglas Elliman, Sonata Ashdam had a listing that had this closet that was built to look like a Chanel boutique. And I remember saying, we're going to grab that closet and we're going to knock it out of the park. And I think we had close to the amount of articles that we had for 1960. It really blew up. So, getting these unique properties and really building them out in the media and telling that story is such a PR move and such a successful campaign is what I look at it as.
What's more important, consistency or creativity?
Both. You want to be consistent and you want to be creative. Those go hand in hand together, and that's how you're really going to build your momentum on, I think, social media. And also when it comes to working together as a team, you want to be consistent and you want to also come up with creative ideas. That's how you're going to really build your brand and get the attention of the outside world.
If you had 30 seconds to coach a new agent, what would you say?
Define your strength, define your brand, and really build on it. Get that social media going, be consistent with it, build content, and also, continue the momentum in your market, but really focusing on what makes you you and what makes you the leader in your industry. You really want to hone in on what makes you a strong market leader.
So in the world of social media today, they want you to post, market the property. Sometimes you feel a little odd. I'm doing it too much. What do we do? What are we supposed to do? Keep posting or slow it down?
I think you break up the property. Go into the unique features of the property, the selling points. So, if it's an indoor pool, do 1 week where you're focusing on the indoor pool. If it's a monstrous closet or a hair salon, next week focus on that. You want to break up the property to really give it more life and more color, and it gives you more momentum and creating more content for your client on your social media.
Is personal branding overhyped or essential to anybody's business?
It's essential. You will get lost in the sauce if you don't have a personal brand.
So you mentioned fashion as well. So did that agency cover different sectors within the PR world?
Yeah. So there was, fashion, lifestyle, they did a lot of liquor brands as well. And then there was, the Douglas Elliman account that was, heavily focused on by me and my colleague. I worked on the fashion side and I was very good at it. And I was also good at hospitality. But I found that those stories keep being played over and over again. It's like, okay, like a new fashion line for, whatever season it was. But in real estate, there was just such an interesting, shift. The market's always shifting. The properties are always changing. And there's always a story behind each property, whether you walk in from the front doors and you uncover, hidden rooms, you uncover just over the top design that there was so much passion behind the real estate side versus, hospitality and fashion for me.
So would you recommend, so if you're coming out of college, and this is sort of that sort of educating the people who were in your shoes, if you're coming out of college, would you recommend dive right into a sector, or do what maybe you did, go to a firm that you're excited about and sort of see where you fall in? Like what advice would you give a younger you?
Well, number one is I think that this generation kind of lost the idea of you have to start from the bottom. I started as an intern, went into an account coordinator. And if people who are listening that don't really know how PR works, an account coordinator really is like the assistant, right? So you're clipping articles at that time, you're scanning them because that's how you did it. You scan them, you created these PDFs, you write the reports, and you really have to start from the bottom. But yes, it is about going into an agency where you can figure out what industry your strengths are in and where you find most passion. If you go into a specific industry, you may find yourself, I don't think this was for me. And then you've already wasted a year or two instead of trying out different areas of PR. So the experience was amazing because that's where I really found that I was strong at real estate PR.
So you would recommend, just get in the game, basically, at a larger firm, I guess, and just start from the bottom, get in the game. Yeah,
get in the game, and you have to start from the bottom. That's the only way if you ever want to build a business. I mean, part of the way that my business is run now goes from my experience of being at the bottom. We have to write these reports for clients. We have to clip those articles that they're included in. And part of that was learning at the intern account coordinator level and then being introduced to the idea of starting to pitch, which is a whole other level of you have to have expertise. And then you're introduced to reporters and building up that momentum and building those relationships. So it's about starting from the bottom if you ever want to be, an agency owner.
Very nice. And how competitive is your world? As you know, in the real estate broker world, in every market, there's, 3 or 4 of us. There's not, in that really top sector. So how competitive would you say your world is? Obviously, it's much larger and international, but for the people that are doing really well and succeeding, how competitive is that market, is that business?
So that's where the vision of Holland Public Relations came about. Is I did find that there was a lack of PR agencies that specialize in, building top agents' brands, right? So everyone's so focused on the industry as a whole and the brokerages, but without the agents, there is no brokerage. And it's these top agents that are really defining the real estate industry. So that's where I decided that, I was very passionate about, the top agents and learning about what, their personal lives, what their strengths are in the markets, and building their brand and their momentum. And, I was very successful at it at Douglas Elliman, being the head of PR for the state of Florida. I found myself in a position where I was so passionate about the agents, the top agents, and really building their brands up in the media, whether it's, getting their properties featured on the Wall Street Journal, and then also getting them on broadcast interviews, and really building that name of Nick Malinosky, like the power player of the Manalapan real estate market, or even Del Rey, and anywhere that, the agent was strong in is where I found myself succeeding in, is in representing them from PR.
I think you were a little bit of ahead of your time with the real estate and the real estate brokerage community. I feel like, now it has become, obviously we're doing podcasts, we're doing social media, we're doing branding, we're doing emails, we're doing everything because you have to.
Yeah.
I feel like the shift has gone from, maybe you do it a little to, if you are a top player, it doesn't matter who you are, you absolutely have to have that. You have to have the brand and the marketing. How important are you seeing the role of branding, a proper PR campaign within, the top agents and new developments that you're representing?
Oh, it's everything now. The industry has completely shifted. And I always say that agents who want to get to your level, they need to invest in their business, and you need to set yourself apart. Whether that's, the top agents don't want to have the exact same collateral as everyone else in the brokerage, right? You want to set yourself apart. So investing in your business is probably the number one thing that I do tell agents that want to get to that next level, is you have to invest in yourself. There's so many new things, whether it's social media, podcasts, it's a whole different landscape. Before, we would see that it was, very focused on the brokerage, right? And, heavy hitters coming into the market. And now it's all about the agents. The agents have really built a brand for themselves through these different platforms, and agents need to be well-versed in each one of them, whether that's social media, whether it's marketing and PR, is really building that, those core fundamentals to get your business to the next level. Yeah.
And I think, it comes back to, people will ask, okay, so why are you doing this, or why are you doing that platform? What's the purpose behind it? Well, the purpose behind it is it's all marketing. We're marketing and selling real estate. It comes down to anything. It doesn't just have to be real estate. It could be, you could be a roofing contractor. It's branding, marketing, reputation. And I feel like now with social media, it's just so hyper-focused. I talk about this all the time. 10, 15 years ago, my clients didn't even know what Instagram was, or right, Facebook or anything, and they didn't care. Now, they're all asking from all demographics, and maybe they're in an older demographic, but their kids are asking. So a lot of times we'll find, a client that we were referred to by their children that might follow us on Instagram or something. So it's extremely important.
Yeah. And you're seeing a lot of clients also like wanting that social media presence. Like there's, and even PR wise, like there's the success that I find is when a client tells me, hey, like I just got a call from a potential buyer who read that story about my listing in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Post. It's that value people are watching, and totally. Sellers want to know that you have an online presence and a social media presence. There are buyers and clients that are coming through social media.
Yeah, I had a client that introduced himself to me the other day, and he said, I want to meet the guy who's in the Wall Street Journal every week being quoted. And I go, okay, all right, well, let's thank Ashley for that one. But no, it's there. It's part of your business. So I know who your clients are. They're all extremely successful. They all invest in themselves. When would you say, let's just say you're a real estate broker or you're a business and you're not crushing it right now, but you want to be.
Yeah.
When is the right time? And it may not be for you, but just generally, when's the right time for somebody to hire someone like yourself or a company and get in the business?
Yeah. So you want to have consistent momentum in your business. Because you're obviously investing money in your business, and you want to make sure that you have a steady flow of whether that be listing sales. being a market expert. So I would say when you hit that point of your at least closing 50 to $100 million a year, that's when you want to start setting yourself apart.
Okay.
It's important to lean on your brokerage and utilize those tools that they offer you. And specifically coming from Douglas Elliman, there's so many different platforms that agents can lean into. There's an amazing PR team there that's always available to help elevate brands. And then you also have the marketing side and the technology. A lot of times you find agents that they didn't even know that these services are offered. So it's important for the agents that are just starting out to really lean into what your brokerage offers you and utilize it to get to the next level. Lean into your management team, lean into your CEO, ask for that support to help you get there. And coming from the inside of the brokerages, we see people that, that want to build their business and we want to help them. So it's important that obviously when you're starting out that you are leaning into the brokerage that you're at to get to that next level. I
totally agree. I feel like just what you said, most people don't even look into it and they're wondering why their business isn't moving forward. They have the tools, and a lot of people get too busy to utilize them, which is why you have to have staff and support,
right?
A PR team. I think with you, my experience with you, you're more than just like, it's not just about an article or a direction or how do we market this or make this happen. You're almost like a manager in a way. We launched that 1960 project in Manalapan. You were overseeing the branding, the marketing firm. I mean, you were making sure brochures got ordered on time. So how often is that the case in your business where it's not just about, hey, we've got a great article or a great property, let's make some connections. Like, how often is that? Is that a normal thing or is that just your approach?
I think it's my approach. I really like to be hands-on, and especially with projects like 1960 or anything that the agent is very passionate about and, they find value in whatever they're doing to build their business. Like I want to be hands-on and I want to be managing it. Because at the end of the day, when the media is it's a delicate dance, right? Anything that is published in the media, you can't take it back, right? So I like to be the one that is helping build that momentum to getting us to the point of where we got in 1960. I think when we first started working together a year ago, Manalapan was known in the media, but it wasn't such a, global market that everyone is talking about now. And we worked on building that momentum, right? Prior to 1960 getting launched, we're talking about the underground tunnels in Fortune magazine and Manalapan and the uniqueness behind that market of what you can really build and, who's flocking there. And then came 1960. And we, from the beginning, you and I and Stuart had this discussion of how we want to market it and what marketing company we want to use. We wanted to go out of the norm, right? We wanted to use someone that we don't see agents using every single day, but someone that could really provide that level of marketing material that you don't see often. And then came the PR side of it. And really, I don't know how many articles we had. I think it was like around close to 80, 90 international, national hits on a property that hasn't even been built yet, but we created this vision and this story that was very successful. So it is very important to be hands-on in managing the entire process for your client, because if it's not a team effort and you guys are not on the same page, the messaging can get misconstrued and it's not successful.
Yeah, I would agree. And you created that timeline, with the marketing firm from start to finish. There was a story before the story even began.
Yeah.
That was pretty wild. That's probably
favorite.
I would go as far to say is in that category that was probably the most successful PR launch ever. There's nothing better. It's
one of my
close
top,
to impossible.
Yeah.
We're not tooting our own horn here, but that was insane.
Yeah, it was great. And I think that also for me, it was a defining moment in my first year of having this business is, this was the first time where I am on my own and I am making these executive decisions, and a lot of pressure because you're dealing with, a very important client. You're dealing with a very important property, a seller that, needs to get this place sold and get it in front of the right eyes. And it was that moment when I just saw like the heavy press coming in and just nonstop article after article. And it was a defining moment for me. And I was very proud of it. And I was proud of you guys too.
You should be. I mean, that was unbelievable. So it was amazing. So after how many years of you in the business did you decide to go on your own and make that scary, I'm sure it was scary, decision to make the jump?
It wasn't so scary because I was leading, the state of Florida for Douglas Elliman for around 6 years. And towards the last 2 years that I was there, I found myself, there was pivotal moments where, I was like, wow, these agents really trust me to get this story out in the media. I'm making these decisions. I'm talking to their sellers and their buyers, some of which are very affluent and well-known figures in business and in every sector of different industries. And, I found myself saying, I think this is the right moment for me to shift what I'm doing, because I was really focused on, corporate company announcements while also assisting with the agent's needs when it came to PR. But it was a moment where I said, I'm set on focusing on the agents. I've built these relationships with these agents. I know their personal lives. Like we're actually friends at this point. And I know everything about their business, but I want to take them to the next level and get them the branding that they deserve. And that's, you guys were one of my first clients, the exclusive group. And I remember writing the press release of you guys starting this team at Douglas Elliman. And then, the media they forgot about the fact that it was the exclusive group. They always considered you guys individuals, right? And that was part of the strategy is making this team, branding it in the media. And now you say the exclusive group and everyone knows who it is. The media knows who it is. And so that's where I found myself wanting to focus more on the agents and focusing all of my time on the agents' brandings within the media. And I took that leap of faith and I said, this is it. This is where we're doing it.
So so now you've got your own shop, your own deal, which, I'll just say a little quick thing. So when Devin, when you first did, our partner, Devin, he goes, hey, Ashley's starting her own thing and, I think we should hire her. And I just replied, okay. It was done. There's no problem.
Yeah.
It's over. So we're doing it. So now you're on your own. You're a mother, you're a wife, business owner, entrepreneur. What is going on? How are you managing? Because I know how crazy we are. I know your other clients, they're pretty crazy too.
Yeah.
Real estate is a world and a business that is chaotic. It's psychotic. It's never ends. We're on the phone, Sunday nights. I mean, it doesn't end.
Yeah.
So how are you, with that transition, how are you sort of mentally clear, healthy, getting after it, running your business? How have you seen, how are you managing that aspect of your life as a mother? I mean, my wife, I couldn't imagine. Okay. All the mothers out there, you're amazing. Okay. You're absolutely amazing. It is nonstop.
Yeah.
So, and I know you're such an amazing mother. How do you do it? How are you doing it right now?
Look, I think it's at the end of the day, whatever business you get into, you have to be passionate about it. You have to be passionate about it. And of course, no day is perfect. I mean, it's chaos constantly. I mean, just last week, my youngest is trying to jump off of a coffee table and the other one has a tantrum and I'm on a phone with a client prepping them for a broadcast interview. It's not about so much balance, it's integrating both, right? And if you don't answer that call when it comes to a reporter, someone else is going to get that story, and I'm fighting for that story. So it's hard to manage, but I'm doing it. And there's moments where, every day is not perfect, but it's about building this village that can help you. And the best decision I had ever made this year was bringing on board Nuri Enamorado, who is the COO and EVP of Holland PR. It's someone that I trusted. It's someone that I worked with for years, and someone who had a different skill set and strength that I didn't have. She's a very business, oriented person. She knows how to run a business. And I need someone to focus on that while I manage getting these clients the press hits that they need, the stories that they need to be in, while also being a mother. So it's very important to invest in your business as well. And I think that I made the best decision ever in my career of bringing her on. And it's part of that village. You have to lean into the help that you got and also juggle it while you can. I mean, I protect my mornings, my kids in the mornings, getting them ready for school. That's my time with them, and on the weekends as well. But if I do get a call from a reporter, I'm answering it.
I mean, essentially, you're like, you're all your agents that you represent. You're essentially one of them. You're just not selling real estate. So if some crazy stuff's happening on the weekend, you need to know about it. You got to answer it. It goes hand in hand. Yeah. I mean, I think you're just either built for it or not. I mean, I think that's probably something that you can sort of tell younger people or people that are thinking about getting into this business. Like I tell them, you need to be ready for 20 years straight to work 7 days plus, because you need staff and everybody else needs to be working with you. You need to be working 7+. What I mean by that is around the clock on your business. And once you get going, it doesn't stop. And from our team, we're all on the same page. There's never a time, whether it's 5:30 in the morning at 10 at night, we're going.
I mean, we were on the phone last night at 8:30 p.m.
Totally. So this is a good sort of piece of advice I think you can give to, a young woman like yourself looking to get into this business. What can they expect to be hours? Like how many hours are they working once they get going? How many hours are they working? When are they expected to be available? Like how grueling is it? I
mean, it's but there could be a day where it's a little bit slower. And then there's other days where you're working last night I was working till 11:30 p.m. Like if you're not passionate about it, it's going to be miserable. It doesn't matter what you do. You don't want to answer the phone call at 8 p.m. at night if it's something that you don't enjoy doing. I enjoy doing this. So for me, getting the kids to bed and then working a little bit at night and whether it's a busy night or not, you're going to be in this for many hours. Yeah. It's no surprise. And the media doesn't stop. Like it's not, if you're not answering the call, they're calling someone else and there's your lost opportunity for your client. So I'm always available. And I like to pride myself on that as well. But there's moments where, my son broke his foot and it was a day that I had to be at an event. And, everything stops at that point, but there's always support behind every single client that I have through my staff. And that's part of going back to what we said is investing in your business and investing in staff that is passionate and has the same vision that you have. If you don't have someone that doesn't have the same vision, the same work ethic as you have, you're not getting anywhere. So part of the balancing act is, again, it's a delicate dance. I mean, there's days where it's absolutely chaotic and there's days where it's a little bit slower, but the hours are crazy and you will be rejected. That's another thing that we were just speaking about earlier is, I'm rejected on a weekly basis. I can send out 12 pitches and only 2 get picked up. The other, 10 are declined. So it's a business where you have to not be afraid of rejection and you have to continue on about, and continuing to try to win that story.
So speaking of that, because that always comes up, especially with any entrepreneur, anybody, in business. So from, let's say, when you graduated college, how have you dealt with the rejection? Because you have so many chances at bat, like we do in our business. You are not going to get all of them. Just not going to happen. Yeah. And there's going to be opportunities that you really, really wanted and that you're passionate about, like what we do. Maybe it's a big property where we know the owner and for some reason we didn't get the listing and it's just a real bummer. And we're, how do you deal with these setbacks and these punches? Over the years, how do you deal with it? Yeah, I don't, I try to tell myself it's not rejection. It's just reevaluating how you wrote that pitch, or maybe the story's not good enough. And part of the media landscape is
you want to tell a story that's not out there, and you want to lean into your clients and understand what is going on in the industry, build up that story, and then offer it to a reporter. But if you're not coming with facts and you're not coming with industry experts, it's probably going to be rejected. But I don't consider it so much rejection. I consider it, reevaluating how the story was written or how the pitch was written. And sometimes there's a story that just never gets picked up, but something else comes of it. The reporter's like, I'm not interested in writing this right now, but do you have a client that can speak to me about XYZ market?
Yeah.
So it's important to not consider it. Don't get down on the rejection. You just have to, this business is all about relationships. Just like your business is, like if you give a reporter a good story, they're going to come back. You sell that client the home, you sell their property, they're going to come back for more. So it's really about being an industry expert in, as a publicist, but also not being afraid of the rejection, because it happens every day.
Yeah. How do you, you mentioned all about relationships. How do you stay in touch with, the Wall Street Journal or these other, you're flowing right now. So you've got a lot going on. So you're naturally talking to the reporters and the people you need to be speaking with. But other than that, how can you make these connections? Like, what would you recommend, if you're starting out, and you don't have this amazing story, how do you make that connection? Or do you just have to have the story?
It's a lot of years of building up these, and I don't really consider them business relationships. I consider a lot of these reporters are personal friends at this point. We've grown together. They've seen me get married. They've seen me have kids. I've celebrated their personal milestones as well, but this is years of being in the business. And I remember my first Wall Street Journal article that came out while I was at Harrison and Schriftman on a real estate side. And it was the most exciting thing ever. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I got this. But it wasn't just getting that story. It was following up with that reporter, thanking them for the coverage, but also going into the next part of that is you have to offer them something unique, and you have to be factually correct. Nothing will get a reporter more irritated than a story running and you having to get it corrected because you gave false information. And that's part of being a good publicist, is fact checking. Sometimes your clients may tell you, I think it's this price point, I think it's this many bedrooms. You need to do your due diligence, because nothing will upset a reporter more than having to go in and correct a story, because then you kind of lose all credibility at that point.
Totally. And working with you got to be aggressive. Like, no, wait, let me ask you and be very clear. Yeah. Did this happen or not?
To reconfirm.
Yes. No, and you're very good at that. So how many, roughly how many clients do you have at the moment?
So we're at 17 clients right now. And my staff is around 4 people. And we have great momentum going. Every single client is just they're an expert in their own way, in their own markets, in their own industries. We've built up such great brands for newer clients who never had a publicist before, to where, they are becoming industry experts, where reporters are coming to us saying, we want to speak to this person. We want to get their insight on whether that be the tariffs, how it's affecting construction costs. So we're at 17. We've built, the year-end report. I think we had close to 26 billion impressions.
Wow.
So my team is very talented. They're all, they all have strengths and skills that are very, very valuable to all of our clients right now.
So real quick, I want to just go over, so for us, you're doing copywriting. What would you say your services are for somebody who's, maybe looking at this saying, oh, wow, maybe we could work with Ashley and she can help us out. What do you like? Where does it start? Where does it stop? Just a quick rundown of like your services. Like, you're doing copywriting, you're doing editing, you're branding,
managing.
Totally. So I think that's unique with what you're offering, because I've worked with people in the past. You're a manager, basically.
Yeah.
You're a public relations manager. So, I mean, you're showing up at our speaking events, like making sure we're not messing up.
I gotta be there. Yeah,
like,
it's
be
important.
on time.
Yeah,
you're yelling at us.
you.
Yeah, you're yelling at us to be on time. So just real quick, like, what's the scope?
So it's different so we don't just represent real estate agents. We also represent interior designers. We represent developers and home builders. And each client has a different scope of work, right? Because we're not going to put an interior designer on a real estate specific panel, but specifically for real estate agents, it's really about going back to what I said is you want to get a publicist when you're making, you're closing 50 to 100 million a year, because during the slower periods, if it's, you're not having a lot of listings or sales, we're focusing more on you being a thought leader through market stories. So we're focusing on listings, we're focusing on closings, we're focusing on, getting you those interviews to be an industry expert in market shifts. We're getting you on panels. And this is a full encompassing scope of work. And that's how we're building brands, right? Mm-hmm. You're not just getting into articles, you're also doing speaking engagements, broadcast coverage, podcasts. So we're really vetting those opportunities, seeing where, each client best fits. To continue that momentum. And we're really managing PR campaigns, like going back to if you're launching a huge project, you need someone that's going to be the project manager of that to oversee it and get everyone on the same, page when it comes to getting the story out there. So there's multiple, different areas that we focus on when it comes to the scope of work, but it's an encompassing, scope of work of hitting different media areas.
Totally. As far as we're concerned, I mean, you've helped us so much with, here's what you want to dress like here, it's just the vibe and the story is all playing together, which has been incredible.
Yeah. And talking points, part of this, the scope of work is media training as well. When you first speak to a reporter, it's scary.
We've seen some bad stuff.
Yeah, we've seen some crazy things happen, and one bad story can completely ruin your brand. So it's not just about securing these stories, and it's about really training them and getting talking points ready for them, practicing on the phone. And again, our business isn't solely on the press hits; it's also protecting, right? So a lot of times we go over this all the time is you have major sales that could make it in the media, but we can't, we have to protect the client. The client always comes number one. So part of that is also, we are in the business to also protect your clients as well.
Yeah. I think that is something that's really come up over the last, I would say, 5-6 years. So we would have, I can't tell you how many times I'd have a client say, Nick, I've known you for 15 years. Why is my house in the paper after you sold it? And of course they come to me first and say, okay, wait a minute. No, of course we didn't disclose anything. That's very important to us, but everything is sort of public these days. So to have a very expensive or important property not be in the press, it's actually, we go out of our way now. If that client's trying to protect it, to do whatever we can to protect it, but it's very difficult these days. So
yeah. And and that's part of being a publicist as well. It's not about the press hits, is like really guiding, our clients. When you tell me, hey, like I have this deal that's going to close, but it cannot come out in the media. You and I are brainstorming. Okay, well, they need to get an amazing attorney to hide it in a trust. We need to figure out how this cannot be, disclosed, whether it's a Delaware LLC, whether it's getting the right attorney to put it in a trust that can never be traced back to the buyer. This is a business of really protecting the clients, but also we're also in the business of getting your brands out there. And so if we're not going to be getting press on the sale or the listing, we want to get you press on what's going on in the market, right? So we're really advisors when it comes to your business. we're not in the business to get a press hit just to, uncover a client. That's not who we are. And that's not what we're going to do.
Totally. And I think, I think it's a misconception. People, well, okay, you're rich, you can afford it, you're in the paper. It's not always the case. Like, as you know, real estate is super unique. It's super different. People need to not be in the press for certain reasons. I mean, you can imagine life. I mean, security purposes. There are a million different reasons why we need to keep some of those things quiet. which we specialize in and have run our business on it. So,
oh my God, if we can go over as the amount of sales that you've had that, have not been in the media.
But we go out of our way to protect it. So you have to. So it's a big deal.
That's part of being a publicist. It's not about getting your client in the media. It's really about protecting their business, and that's protecting your business.
Yeah. I had a question for you. It's almost for a friend. So, we touched upon this. So, let's say you have a skincare product and you are looking for a PR firm. You don't want to just get lost in a large firm.
Right.
What do you do? How do you find, because I know that you have the connections with the right people based on your history, what you've created, your reputation. Where do you go these days? So luckily we were introduced to you a long time ago, so we were always in good hands, but for that person just not in real estate or something else, how do you make that fit? I mean, do you just pick a person or do you find a specialist?
Yeah, you want to find someone that specifically specializes in the industry that you're in, right? And you want to see results. So if it's a skincare line, you want to look for someone who's obviously in health and beauty. And you want to see who their clients are, previous clients, ask them for, ask them for a deck that goes over a testimonial of what they've done for previous clients. You don't want to make this decision and put yourself in a situation where you hire someone who is not exactly strong in that industry, and then you don't get the results that you want. And PR is exactly that. I'm not going to be the person to represent a fashion line. I don't have the relationships with those reporters. It's been, I want to say 10 years since I've been out of an agency that I worked with those fashion reporters. And it's a business that evolves. So some of those reporters that I worked with years ago are not there anymore. So you don't want to choose someone that does not have the strengths in that industry just because they want to add a fashion client to their portfolio or a skincare line to their portfolio. We're not in the business of doing that. We're in the business of real estate, and we're going to stay to real estate because that's what we're strong in. So if you're looking for someone to represent your brand, you need to find someone that has that experience and has those connections and those relationships. Do your research. Look at, articles that you'd want your skincare line to be in. Look at who the reporter is. Ask that publicist, hey, do you have a relationship with this reporter that I saw this article in? Mm-hmm. So you want to find the person that's an expert in that field. So you really have to, based on, our experience, that's what I've learned. It's almost like selling luxury real estate in a certain market. You have to be that person. Yeah. But I feel like it's just so overwhelming with, all the people. Where do you go? So yeah. So you really got to do your research and target that one person, really. Is it more of a person or a firm? So it depends. If you have like a very, large company that you want to be represented, I would definitely go the route of getting a bigger firm. Now, if you're someone small starting out, a small startup business, you probably want to find a freelancer that, you can start small, build up the momentum, and based on, the changes of your company, whether it's growth, then at that point you can start evolving and seeing, if you need to look for a bigger, PR firm. But I would focus on getting, a freelancer if it's a small business startup, or a smaller boutique, agency. These people are your direct contact. You want the expert to be your direct contact. You don't want a junior person that's going to take over your account. So it's important that you start small if you're in a smaller business. And for us specifically, is none of our clients are small, but you are getting direct contact with, the heads of Holland PR. Totally. How big, and I know we'll wrap up, we're getting close on time here, but where do you see your growth? Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And what are your personal thoughts on your personal growth and Holland PR? Yeah, so we're in a very good position right now. And if the right client comes along, we'll take them, but we're in a period of, we're being very highly selective of who we want to represent. We're not in this business to take as many clients as we can to build up, revenue. We're really focused, and our passion is behind our clients. So our focus in the next year is going over what those goals are for each client, getting them to that point, whether that's getting them their first broadcast appearance, whether, it's getting them on a speaking panel, So we're in this period where we're very focused on what we have because that's where we're passionate, and we're highly selective of who we're going to bring on.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, congratulations. You're the best. Hardest working person I know.
It was fun.
Yeah, this was awesome. So I really appreciate it. I think a lot of people are going to love what they've heard, what they've sort of learning about your business. And I can't thank you enough. You're the best.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Great.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. On The Exclusive Mindset, we are focused on speaking with entrepreneurs and learning about their business, their struggles, their success. If you want to check out more episodes just like it, check out up here.